Seems to be working. Hello folks, how is everyone today? It is 12 o'clock on a Monday morning in New Zealand. I realise the timing doesn't necessarily work very well for everybody, especially people in the UK. It could be around midnight there. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. It needs to be during the day here, as my family are all out and about doing their thing, school and work and what have you. So the internet is the best. Also means that most of my audience is in the US, and so this seems to be about the best time for people there. Hopefully you're hearing everything okay. Could probably do with a little more, I think. Let's give that a little more. Right. There we go. Hello, hello, hello. There we go, that's better. Had a great gig yesterday. We played at the Capital Blues Club in Wellington for Kuburupo, which is a festival that happens here, and basically shut down one of the main streets of Wellington and put on all these concerts and face painting and food and things like that. It's kind of a celebration of a pretty funky kind of street in Wellington. It's kind of definitely the funkiest street in Wellington. And we played at the Capital Blues Club, which is hosted at an Irish bar. With quartet, so drums, bass, guitar and harmonica vocals. Yeah, it was fun. We had a good turnout. Place was packed and the band played their asses off. Those guys are so great. I love that rhythm section there. Those guys are funky. It's water. I was watching my friend David Beebe's live stream this morning, and his is jams and drams, I think he calls it. I couldn't possibly do something like that because it's midday. Maybe I could, right? It's evening somewhere in the world. So I thought I'd play some Mike Stern stuff, kind of talk about that, and because I did that video the other day about Mike's playing, about the tour we did and the various things. I realised I was talking about him in past tense. Someone brought that up. The reason for that was that, to me, the tour is past tense. You know, I was talking about Mike did this. Well, he still does it, but what I was talking about was what I saw at the time that he did that, right? Which was, that tour was some years ago. So, yeah, definitely great player. I think people underestimate how badass his rhythm is, you know? So I try to hammer that point home. Hope you're hearing everything okay. Let me know if you are or if you're not. Trying out these new picks. These are ones I've actually really like. I've kind of been using various different ones of these. And the interesting thing is the shape of them makes such a difference. This is a Prime Tone by Jim Dunlop. I've tried a few of these now. I've tried the 1.3, I've tried the 1mm, which this one is. This is the 1mm, and I've tried the 0.88. And I've tried them both in Prime Tone shape, which is the regular pick. And then the, flow. And the flow ones sound different, right? Because they're more of a point, right? And they're all hand beveled and stuff, so they're quite expensive. I think like 3 picks is like is like $20 in New Zealand. You know, which is $20 for 3 picks is kind of getting up there in value. But I like them. I like the sound of them. They kind of got a bit of brightness. They're really good for rhythm parts, which is really important to me. I'm a very rhythmic bass player. So something like has to be able to do that. And I find really hard picks aren't really good for that kind of rhythm, sort of playing funky kind of groove stuff, or even just something like. Hard picks not so great for that, but then they're good for, well, picking. I was trying this too. If you guys know the gravity picks, they're really good. But the thing I find with them is they're just not particularly great for the rhythm guitar side of it. So it's sort of like, I don't know. I was looking into Red Bear picks last night. I've had one of them before. They're ridiculously expensive. Those Red Bear picks, I found them. You can't get them in New Zealand. I haven't seen anybody stock them here, but there's an Australian place that has them. $80 per pick. $80 Australian. So that's about 85 New Zealand. Then you got to ship it here, so you're looking like $100 per pick. I'm like, has anyone used Red Bear picks? Are they that much better? I've used one before. I don't remember it being that great. I don't even know what happened to it. I probably lost it or something or whatever, you know what I mean? But $100 for a pick, that's getting ludicrous. Better be gold plated for that price. These are, like I said, are quite expensive. 3 for $20, so they work out about $7 each or something. Is that right? A little under 7 each. But they seem to be pretty good. As opposed to like a Jazz 3, which is what I've been using for the longest time, these ones. Alright. The good old Jazz 3 seems to... Michael Torrin said, I can't imagine $100 for a pick. Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? These are like $2 or $3. Even $6 or $7 feels painfully expensive to me. But $100 for a Red Bear pick? I mean, come on. So I was kind of talking about that. Wanted to talk about that Mike Stern stuff because people were asking. There was a bunch of questions. I got some private messages as well too. I guess people didn't want to comment on YouTube and what have you. There's a bunch of things that I kind of didn't really get into. I didn't get into too much of kind of the note choice stuff that he does and things like that. Michael says, I still haven't bought a Mesa Boogie Revolver. You got to get one, dude. My one's over there. You can see it's got the sitting over there, and they're just awesome. Actually, for this sound right now, the Boogie Revolver would be even better for that chorusing effect, you know. The only problem with with doing this kind of stuff with a revolver is this microphone here, which I use for my voice, would totally be blown out by by any kind of amp or whatever. So that's why I use the Fractal when I do this stuff, because I can get my voice and not have to worry about clipping the vocal mic. But that sounds pretty close to the Stern thing. He doesn't use a whammy bar, but I just can't help myself when there's one. So here's a Mike Stern track, backing track that I found on YouTube. It says Mike Stern Jazz Funk Style Guitar Backing Track in G Minor AV46, and it's by Vito Astone Music, whoever that is. I thought I'll play this and I'll kind of touch on a few things. I'm going to go for kind of two tones with this. I'll go for this sort of clean tone and then a bit of drive. So not the real heavy drive. It needs some delay too. Yeah, but that sort of thing. The drive might be a little much. Let's pull that back a touch. At least for the Stern thing. Right, let's get this go. Hopefully you hear everything okay. I'm assuming you will be. So this is G minor, B flat to C7. And then there's a B section. I don't know this track, I just found it. flat, B flat 9, C. Drive on that, that's what I want to hear. Yeah, so that's a fun track. You know, it's got some things with it that we can kind of get into today with the Mike Stern thing if you want to. Let's pull that off and go back to clean. So a couple of things I was kind of getting into in there with that are very Mike Sternism. You know, this idea of kind of the blues and bebop that I kind of talked about in that video the other day, where he'll do things like. You know, where it's sort of that sort of thing, where it's this very fluid idea of kind of going between blues and bebop. And I think the way it kind of gets into that is a lot of the bends are not always big bends. Sometimes it'll be stuff like just a semitone away. So if you have an F note, he'll go. So there. It's kind of more like a blues thing. Right, so it's this mixture of ideas. When he does tend to do the bigger bends, this sort of stuff, it's more like when he wants to let something kind of ring out. So like if he's playing... So you see on the end of that big long line, I played this sustained note. I've just had some work done on this guitar too, and it's still not come right. It's fretting out a little bit there. And got a buzzing still in the middle for some reason. He didn't seem to manage to be able to get that to play any better. But I did have the wiring change too, which is the other thing I had been talking about for a while. So if you... excuse me. Sorry, I'll just have some water. That's better. So if you see me adjusting things, that's what I'm doing. It's I don't have to adjust both volumes anymore. This one just doesn't do anything anymore. right? It's been disconnected. So much better. This one still has the coil tap on it, but it works for both pickups now. I mean, I get why David Weckl did what he did with the wiring, you know, because this one here was the bridge pickup, and this one here was the neck pickup, so it's the opposite way around. You know, because he plays on the bridge pickup 90% of the time. That makes sense, right? But for me, it's like I use both pickups, right? And he would often, he apparently uses the bridge pickup the most, 90% of the time, and then if he does switch, he goes up to both pickups and he'll blend in just a little bit of neck pickup, so that's kind of why he wanted that like that. For me, I play the neck pickup probably more than the bridge pickup. Or at least, you know, maybe, actually probably half and half. So for me, it was a real mission to try and get that one there, especially with the whammy bar right there. You'd be kind of missing that, and you can't do your volume swells with it, things like, because you can't quite reach that volume control with the neck pickup. So it's like, I just wanted to simplify it. I prefer that with guitars. One volume, one tone, be done with it. And I hate push-pulls like this, you know. I don't like coil tap pickups anyway, but I guess it's another sound, so it's kind of handy to have it there. But that is a difficult thing to do when you're in the heat of battle. So anyway, back to what I was talking about. So the bending thing, it's like blues and bebop mixed together, and it's like little bends if it's in the middle, you know, quarter, half, a 1 fret bend. I'll get it out eventually. If it's in the middle of a phrase, and if it's anything kind of sustained, it'll be a 2 fret bend. So how do you work on that? Well, the thing is, like with bebop lines, they're 8th notes, right? You don't tend to see, unless you play double time, then they become 16th notes, right? You don't tend to see them as much being triplets. And the reason is the underlying feel is a triplet kind of thing, right? If you think about swing, or certain tempos, you think about swing feel, right? It's kind of based on a triplet, ting, 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 right? It's kind of built off a triplet groove. So the thing is that you don't want to be doing that. That's kind of just like you don't want to be playing quarter notes, you know. If you do a solo and you go, you know, it's kind of a bit lame, isn't it? You can hear that string's gone out of tune. Nothing drives me more nuts than a guitar that's out of tune. Just can't handle it. So the thing is, like, it's 8th notes, right? So you really want to be, if you want to work on that stern style, it's like you want to be able to get those can't even say it again, semitone bends, 1 fret, in amongst 8th note lines, right? And a good way to do that is just put a track on like I had on a minute ago, and just practice playing constant 8th notes over it. And in some ways it's kind of an unmusical thing, but I'm still trying to make it feel like it's music, and I'm trying to find some interesting notes in amongst it. I put in all the kind of stuff that I want to be including. I want to be musical with it as I can. But as an exercise, all you're really trying to do is like feel where the 8th notes are, how to make it swing against the thing, because that's kind of a straighter groove, but there is a bit of an implied swing about it. But I still want to have a swung thing over the top of it, right? So I want to, thanks Helix World, I want to have that, but then I also want to kind of add in those bends as well. It got me. There was an advert right in the middle of that. There you go. That's just brilliant. Another thing that Mike does quite a bit is putting in the altered 5 chord, but he doesn't really use the altered scale as much as I thought he did. For a long time I thought he was using altered scale on the 5 chord, and he does, but I more often than not hear Mike using the half-whole diminished. Oh, lost my headphones for a minute there. The half-whole diminished scale, which is this. Hopefully you can see that okay. So if we're thinking of G minor, the 5 chord would be D, right? And half-whole diminished is we're going from D, and then we go up a semitone, so that's the half part, and then up a tone, so it's semitone, tone, semitone, tone. It's that kind of sound. So flat 9, but with natural 5, so not really altered. And that's one I hear Mike using more often than I hear him using the actual altered scale. The actual altered scale would be this. It's more like... right? It's got that thing in it. And it's an easy way to kind of get to that is learn that one shape that I just did, right? And try and get this up in close so you can see it. You can go back and check these out afterwards because I always repost them, so... Right, and the good thing about it is it's symmetrical, so if you play D, you can play B as well, and it's the same shape. G sharp. Or A flat. And that's kind of the secret one right there, right? If we have G minor, which we're in, Dorian sound. Right, G Dorian. And then go to A flat, half-whole diminished, because A flat, B, and D are all the same, and F, right? So you go to A flat, half-whole diminished. G minor, right? So you see that sort of, it's a really good way to kind of get into that altered 5 chord or flat 9 5 chord. Is just play A flat. It's the same thing, right, as D. You're kind of implying this. So the chord changes in that backing track were... In fact, it was B flat major. Cheers, Alexander Kennedy. I appreciate the kind words. It's this thing, right? So there's no D7 chord in there, is there? But why not throw them? Right? So, but by all means, do use the altered scale too, and I do. This was the other change. So you guessed it, would go B flat, and then on the C7, go B flat altered. Because whenever you want to, you can add in that altered 5 chord, because it's a resolution that everybody's ears will follow. And the reason we follow that is that resolution from a 5 to a 1 is so strong in music, right? People know, right? We just know that even if it's only implied and not actually there. Right? Like that, right? And of course, chromaticism, as I talked about, is a big thing about what he does. Thinking chordally over things, I definitely hear him hitting kind of chord tones against things, right? And that, again, it's kind of standard jazz sort of repertoire, isn't it? Jazz vocabulary is being able to play chord changes, right? And if you can't play chord changes, then you just don't sound like a jazz player. It's like one of the things that's a big part of that, right? And that's totally fine. Like some music doesn't require you to play chord changes, like the blues. I had a blues gig yesterday. Now we're kind of a little bit naughty and kind of put in some funk and soul, and I definitely put in some jazz stuff. But I try and do it where it's appropriate. Like last night, one of the tunes on the gig we did was like an up-tempo, fast jump swing blues. Well, if it's a swing blues, I'm going to be... You know what I mean? I'm going to be playing that sort of thing because that sort of suits the style. But we also did like a Chicago style blues, like a... Realize I've got the complete wrong sound for that right now. Let's get rid of that. One of those sort of things. Now, if we were doing that and I was to go... it's just wrong, isn't it? And everyone's going to be like... maybe some music school students would be impressed or something. They'd be like, wow, check out the hip shit he's doing. When really all you're doing is wrong. It's actually really easy to play wrong, believe me. It's not so easy to play right. I think a lot of people get caught up with that too, it's sort of what I was just saying about playing wrong. It's very easy to get caught up with that. I think it's sort of one of those things that appeals to people, the whole playing out thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because music really at its heart is tension and release when you think about it. And so I think it's very easy to kind of get caught up in the kind of more out things because it's kind of, we get bored of pentatonic, don't we? We kind of go, oh, pentatonic, what can I do that's not pentatonic? But sometimes pentatonic is best, Mike Stern uses pentatonic loads in his playing. And there's still, every time I think I've got pentatonic down, I start to think, yeah, I got this together. I figure something else out about it. Do you know what I mean? And then it's kind of like, oh, well, you can do this and you can do that and you can go, you know what I mean? And so... yeah. Any questions? I was just playing along to this earlier. I'm going to see if I can get this going. I wonder how I do that. There we go. Is it going to blow out the levels? So, We had the gig last night. That was lots of fun, as I mentioned. I've got a gig this Friday, playing with the orchestra here in Wellington. We're doing like a charity concert. So if people are around, come in Wellington, come out and check out the gig. We'll be doing a mix of like classical repertoire, and then we're doing like pop and rock songs. We're doing Eye of the Tiger. The orchestra seems to like that arrangement that we play. It's a little different than the original. It has all these, maybe it's because of the string parts is why they like playing it. There's some very cool string lines in this arrangement we're playing. But we're doing Hopelessly Devoted to You by Olivia Newton-John, and from Greece. So I'm going to take this guitar because this will suit like Eye of the Tiger, and we're doing The Greatest Showman, which it's a really big, powerful kind of sound. So I'll take this, but I also this doesn't do the single coil thing very well. It really doesn't. Coil tap single coils don't get you there. You've got this. Which is a slide guitar thing, do you know what I mean? And this isn't... So I will take my tally because there's a couple of things we're doing. We're doing Let It Go from Frozen. I don't know why the hell we're playing that song. We've done it a few times on these orchestra gigs, and it just doesn't make any sense for us to play it. The kids aren't going to be there, right? It's not really their sort of concert. It's on a Friday evening. It's almost like they want the adults to sing along or something. I don't really get it, but... Now, check this out. That's it, right? That's closer to that pedal steel kind of sound. So I'm going to take this. The bummer is we're doing Hopelessly Devoted as the first string with the rhythm section. They play a couple of classical tunes first, then we do Hopelessly Devoted, and then we do Eye of the Tiger back to back. And I thought, actually, could I get away with playing Eye of the Tiger on this? Just about, right? It's not really got that kind of humbuckery grunt thing, but with that kind of sound, that's a Friedman setup in the Fractal. So I was tempted to do that. DNL 7208 says, when I play out, I want it to seem like it's part of my regular vocabulary, and so it's not out. It's just the way I play in here. I totally agree. If you guys want to check out the master of that, check out Bob Mintzer. I toured New Zealand with Bob Mintzer some years ago, and that wasn't that long ago, in the last 10 years. And Bob Mintzer has a way of playing out. You don't even know it's out. It seems like it's just a logical part of the melody, because he weaves it in a way that's just so perfectly, seems like it's meant to be there. And then once you start kind of checking it out, you go, oh, that's the altered scale, or that's this, or that's kind of whatever. But yes, there's a way of making it sound so perfect. And I know some people kind of have this attitude that it's kind of boring, but I don't think it's boring at all. I think it's awesome what he does. It was funny, we did that tour, and we played in Palmerston North. We played a bunch of gigs, but we did Palmerston North in particular. And the reviewer wrote the review about me. And the caption at the top of it was, Bob Mintzer who, ? Granville's on fire. And the band leader was really pissed off about it, He was like, it's kind of disrespectful to do that kind of shit. But one of the things the reviewer said was that, was surprised that I didn't melt the fretboard. It's like, oh, come on, man. Hey, I'll take it. But then by the same token, maybe it was just he likes guitar and he doesn't like saxophone as much. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, but it was fun. But Bob Mintzer's kind of the master of playing out without it really seeming out. Alexander Kennedy says, on that topic, Nick, actually, do you ever play like swing from the 30s era? I do. Like Benny Goodman tunes, yep. Been listening to Jonathan Stout lately, a current swing player who heavily uses chord melody. He's great, isn't he? I like Jonathan Stout's playing. I've heard some stuff from him. It's not really my thing, I have a former student of mine at the jazz school here in Wellington, a guy called Alexander Bolton. He goes by Honey Bolton sometimes when he plays. Dude dresses up in like a full suit all the time, like to go to the supermarket. And it's very much a 30s kind of style, very similar to Jonathan Stout in terms of the style, the way he presents himself and everything. It's a real throwback kind of thing, right? To me, that's not me. I'm looking forward, not backwards, right? But I do some gigs where I do that kind of thing, where I play swing, really older style swing stuff. We just did a gig at the Wellington Jazz Club with Fiona Pears, and we played a mix of stuff, but it was kind of largely the Django Reinhardt kind of thing. But also we did some things like All of Me and songs like that. Old jazz standards that's what the club wants, right? So you give them what they want. So I took my jazz guitar, the Ibanez AF2000, and I took my gypsy guitar. I mostly play the gypsy guitar. Yeah, so sometimes I do, and it's fun. But I definitely think of myself as more a modern player. Like my voice really, as a musician, is electric guitar. That's it. More so than an acoustic kind of sound. And I've realized that, probably in the last 10 years, I like solid body guitars in the way that you get more sustain. And I've been playing this guitar a lot lately. Even on the blues gig yesterday, I took this, and I maybe other guitar players would rather I played something else playing blues. But I don't care. This guitar was really inspiring, so I used it. Another question. Hi, Nick. Thanks for the QA live stream. No worries, man. It's great to hear some amazing organic stuff. Cool, thanks. I was wondering, what's your thought process when you're improvising? Depends, right? If I'm practicing, it's very different from when I'm playing a gig. If I'm practicing, I get very down in the weeds with stuff. Like, I'm getting very analytical. I'm trying to figure out stuff. If I'm practicing, it often sounds bad, right? And I think that's a thing. When people practice, they often try and remind themselves that they're a good player, that they've got some stuff together, and they just play. To me, when I'm practicing, I'm trying to get better, so I'm pushing myself hard, and I'm trying to go beyond what I can do, and so therefore it doesn't really sound that great sometimes. I've been working on my technique a lot lately, and hence the quest for picks, as I mentioned earlier, to find the right pick. And what I've found is, to play fast, you got to practice fast, right? You got to practice slow to start with. Make sure you get the part down. Then once you got it down, you got to start sprinting, right? Can't be walking. You got to sprint. And so with that stuff, it's kind of messy. I'm pushing it. I'm trying to get beyond what I can do. It gets a little bit messy. As you get better at it, the mistakes start disappearing, and that speed becomes your speed. So when I'm practicing, I'm thinking very analytical. What are notes against chords? What are sounds? What am I trying to achieve? When I'm playing a gig, it's completely different. I don't think about any of that. I think about what's going on in the music. What do I need to take care of? If the rhythm is a little bit sloppy, say the rhythm section's kind of a little bit wonky, which happens sometimes. People's focuses can go to different places. There can be all kinds of factors. Maybe the drum kit, is kind of a little funky that they had. And it's we had a gig the other day, and the bass drum was moving. It was slipping forward. And the drummer was having a real hard time. Now he's got awesome time, so we didn't have to worry about that. But nonetheless, it was really bothering him. So that could be a point where I need to lock down the rhythm, because he's trying to deal with that. So I kind of been thinking about that, but I'm thinking, more than anything, what am I trying to say when I play? That's really it, right? If I play something it's kind of feels like I'm speaking the blues, right? Whereas if I play something to me, that feels like it's more like a modern jazz type thing, right? If I play something to me, that's more like a SCO type thing, isn't it, right? So it's sort of what I'm trying to do, depends what I'm trying to say in the music. And to me, that's often dictated by the song. It's also dictated by the gig. If I'm, with this orchestra gig on Friday that I'm playing, with the orchestra and singers, it's they'll be doing some classical program. We're doing some sort of pop rock songs in amongst it. Hopelessly Devoted, Eye of the Tiger, these sort of things, Let It Go. My role in that is to fit in with the orchestra. So in that case, I will be improvising because, some of it's chord charts and there's sort of suggestions of what I should play, but not necessarily what I should play. And other bits, it's very specific. In fact, do I have the Eye of the Tiger chart here? I wonder if I do. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, and we're doing Skyfall. Yeah, so the first bit of that is... There's only one guitar, so I have to find a way to get it in between it. And the best I found is to go... And I know that chord there should have a C pedaling underneath the A flat, but I can't really do that and hold this A flat power chord, so I kind of have to. But anyway, it goes. Yeah, that's right. That's tricky. I'll have to have a look at that and figure out a better way to do that. And then there's all the string stuff going on, and then it goes 1, 2, 3. So on and so on. Blah blah blah. And then of course all the chorus stuff is the same. So there's all. It's really just the intro and outro where it has that big string bit that I was just talking about. So in that case, there's not a lot of improvising, but some of the others in there. What does Skyfall have in it? No, that's written out. It's a reading gig, by the way. Oh, we're doing a song called This Is Me. Oh, is this The Greatest Showman? Yeah, it is. Right, so it's really, he's just giving me, a lot of times just giving me chord things. So he's written this. Let's use the tuning. Like I said, I can't stand out a tuned guitar. Nothing worse. Always tune up. Right, holds better. So in that case, I'm going to be like... I'm going to be adding in my own little things. So in that case, it's about fitting in with the style, improvising, but in a way that's musical to the style and stuff like that. I don't think I have a solo. I don't know that I have a solo on the whole gig. Huh, interesting. Maybe not. Probably not. Unusual, because usually when we do electric songs, there's a heap of guitar solos. The gig in the weekend, last weekend I did with the orchestra, we did like Don't Stop Believing and Living on a Prayer, and like I think I had a half dozen solos in the set. This gig I'll be playing, more stuff. I mean, I'd love to be able to do that whole gig on the telly. That'd be great. Mostly because I need it. The one song where I really get featured is Hopelessly Devoted. Because, there's all those pedal steel parts. And that really needs to be the telly. It just doesn't sound right on anything else that I have. I did try and figure out a way to do that playing slide. Because it would sound really cool with slide. But, when you got notes like this. that kind of makes sense to kind of find a slide. So I tuned this string up and I kind of found a way to do that. But then it meant I couldn't do anything else, right? There's a... There's all these sorts of parts, right? Then I'm just, that slide tuning just would wreck everything else. So it's sort of one of those things. I mean, a B bender might be the way to go. I don't have one of those, but so the only option I have really is to try and go. And kind of slide in amongst them. It's also got heaps of verb on it. So even that much verb is not enough compared to what it is. So I'm going to set up actually, probably what I'll do is I'll use the FM3 and I'll probably just turn up the reverb for that song and turn it back down on the... Because the perform page, any of you Fractal users, get into the perform page. That's where it's at. So I usually set up a reverb mix, a reverb time, and there I have a control for the tremolo. So I can do how much, usually gain on amps and stuff like that. And then the global settings are always the generic amp settings and stuff like that. I also have my delays there, so if I want more of them, I can just scroll across one button to scroll across, and you've got 8 controls all ready to go. It's huge. Like, I didn't realize about the perform page just how powerful that was until recently. I was hanging out with Andrew Farnham in Brisbane, the distributor for independent music, who do Fractal in New Zealand and Australia, and he was telling me about the perform page, and I was like, oh man, can't believe I hadn't got to that. So this guitar has a Damasio area in here. So as you can hear, even if I crank up the drive, it's pretty quiet compared to the bridge pickup. Doing volume swells on these sort of things is always weird because you can hear, with the mic, can hear the string noise. So you don't get the proper ramp up. Yeah. Any questions? I'm going to have to go soon, folks. It's been 48 minutes and I try and keep these to 1 hour. If you just joined me, please like the video. All that stuff helps. Like. If you haven't subscribed, then please do. You probably hear this from everyone else who does YouTube, but analytics will show you that about half the people aren't subscribed to watch your videos. Actually, it's a lot more than that. Usually it's about 70 or 80%. And they could be, I think part of that is that people watch stuff on TVs too, and they're not necessarily logged in. Like, I watch YouTube on my TV the most. And so therefore, because I watch a lot of YouTube, I love YouTube. But I watch YouTube and I'm not logged in on my TV because it's, I don't want my YouTube logged in on there. Any questions about the mic stand thing? I mean, we could talk about kind of stuff out, touring with mic outside of actually the playing. If you wanted to know any questions about that. It was pretty cool actually, that tour that I got to, he was here for about 10 days or something like that, and we did, I think, 4 or 5 kind of main gigs, and there were a couple of kind of smaller stuff, and then there was, so I think it was about maybe 7 gigs in total, and then he did a workshop in Wellington, which I didn't play with him for. He had a rhythm section. It was drums and bass, so he used the drummer and bass player from the big band. I don't think I played on that one with him. Maybe I did. I can't remember. I was there. I did play the one in Palmerston North, which played duo, just 2 guitars, and then there was one in Auckland too, I think, that I accompanied him on. But the best part about that whole tour was actually the drives in the car, because the gigs were spaced out about 3 or 4 hours drive in between. So we'd often get up in the morning, I'd go and pick him up, we'd jump in the car, and then we're 3 or 4 hours of just listening to music and talking about music and talking about all kinds of, talking about life and family and things and all that kind of craziness. And then usually when we got to the hotel. We'd check in and all that kind of stuff. And then Mike wanted to jam every day. Like, that was one thing he was real big on. So we would jam for about 3 hours maybe at the hotel, just in the hotel. And usually it was Giant Steps or All the Things You Are or There Is No Greater Love. These sorts of tunes, like sometimes a blues, sometimes a Latin tune, but generally the same sorts of tunes. And we kind of get into the weeds of it and just play long solos, maybe a 10-minute solo each, and just try and, and then he play one, and then I play one, then he play another, and I play another, and we just keep doing this, and it, and I learned so much about playing from doing that. Unfortunately, I had a cut on my finger right before that tour. I cut it with a hedge trimmer, and basically cut it from here right around the side, so I had this finger all taped up. So I was trying to do everything with just these 3 fingers, which was really unfortunate, because, playing with those monster players, Joe Defrancesco too, with only 3 fingers, but, I got through it. But, there's a video clip that was floating around the band that the bass player came and sat in on one of our jam sessions, and he was watching from on the couch, and he filmed a little bit, which is where that photo comes from that you might have seen me post in relation to this. But at one point Mike stops us and he goes, "Hey motherfucker, you're not supposed to be able to play like that with only 3 fingers." Which I kind of wish we could have played with, he'd get to hear me properly. But it was what it was, such is life. Look after your hands. I'm generally very careful with my hands. That was just an accident that happened. It was either that or fall off the ladder. I was up trimming the hedges at the side of our old house, not the house we're in now, this one, but the one before that. And there was a row of hedges, and I had the ladder leaning against the hedges and was trimming the tops of them, which I'd done plenty of times. For some reason, I don't know what happened. Maybe the ground was a bit slippery or something, but the ladder started slipping. And I remember falling backwards and just grabbing onto whatever I could to stop the whole thing going over. Because, probably break my back or something. And unfortunately, the hedge trimmer came down and went across my finger and cut it from here right the way around. On my little finger, luckily, although unlucky, because it also meant, so they put those bandage, the glue stitches on it, and then bandaged it up, so I had my hand all bandaged up, and I could play, but I'd forget and I'd play a chord like that, and then I'd be like, it was really painful. DNL728 says Bob Mintzer is awesome, especially with the Yellow Jackets. Yeah, I saw him with the Yellow Jackets too, where long before we did that tour, and they were awesome. And it was funny. There was a few musicians in town were really dogging on them, and they were all getting bitchy about it and kind of the Yellow Jackets were too smooth jazz, or they were this, or they were that, or whatever. And I'm like, man, don't judge music like that. It's kind of, I think some musicians kind of get caught up that they like a style of things, right? Like if they're the bebop guy, then anything else outside of bebop is, they kind of put it down. And that's dumb. Or you see this a lot with classical musicians, right? And classical music is seen as the highest of order, and anything else is kind of inferior, which is total crap, if you ask me. And there was a bit of that going on when the Yellow Jackets came in town. I've never kind of saw it that way. I just saw it that they played great, and it was great, really good playing. It was really, really fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah, Russell Frante's chord playing is incredible, is what DNL says. Yeah, I agree. I think that he's underrated in that stuff. And I think, who was playing bass? Might have been Jimmy Haslip. I think it was. And then, what's the drummer's name? Can't remember. He was amazing. God, I can't even think of his name. In fact, I'd say the drummer probably stole the show. That was the one. And then it was maybe about 3 or 4 years later we did that tour with Bob Mintzer. And Bob was really sweet to me. He was a nice guy. He didn't like things too loud, which I get. And he also didn't, he had a thing where there were certain things he liked to hear in the music in a certain kind of way. But he was really gracious with his time and with working with people and trying to get it to the best it could be. And he also was really cool. After the tour, I asked him if I could have a look at some of the scores from his music, from his charts, and he sent me a bunch of them, and I actually went through and analyzed them, and I found there were certain things that he does kind of routinely. So if we're in A minor, this is a chord voicing that he used a lot in the horns. Right, which is G, C, D, B over A. Real pretty, and there's something about keeping that the 9th to the 4th, 11th, if you want to think of it that way, that 6th apart, and then having the closer interval in the middle of the C and the D, and then the lower one. So it's sort of stacks really well in horns, and so I use that quite a bit in my guitar. So, you know, there were chord voicings like that I found trends, if you will, that he would use. And so I stole them and used them in my own writing. And I also used them in my guitar playing because it was cool stuff. And, you know, dude's a monster. Like I said, please like the video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you haven't done that, because it helps as well. YouTube's a funny old thing. Maybe I'd get away with that sound. Another thing too is single coil noise, you know. Yeah, I think I'm probably gonna have to take 2 guitars anyway, because if you break a string, it's always one of those things, you know, it's a bit of a risk to just take 1 guitar, especially for gigs of that level. If it's just a club gig, like, you know, you're playing in a pub or a small, like, jazz club, music club, whatever, doesn't matter too much, you know, you can take a break and change a string. You can't on a concert with an orchestra. So I will take this guitar, and I will take this, and I'll use this for the more rockier, heavier stuff, and I'll use this for the more poppier kind of things, and like Let It Go, for example, as I mentioned, we are doing, I think, yes, we are. So it has, this is all he's written. He's written, and then the top, I'm assuming that means the top note of the chord. As you wrote that. He's written the occasional line, like there's a bit that goes. You can't quite see that. Written as chords. So on and so on, and then and yeah. I wonder if I can show you guys. It's alright, no easier way to do this. That's what they look like. Alright, so there's some collection of notes written by Dan Hales, a really good piano player in Wellington, and he writes a lot of stuff for the orchestra, and he'll end up playing piano on it, I assume. Dillboat says, "Hey Nick, do you have any tips for developing focus skills in this vastly distracting era of time?" Yeah, I do. It's much harder now, I think, than it was when I was learning, in terms of distraction, because there's just so much stuff around here, right? The first thing to do, turn your bloody phone off, right? If I need to be focused, what I do is I put things into flight mode. I mean, I keep my phone on usually, but I just put it in flight mode and turn do not disturb on and all that kind of stuff. And it's amazing what that does, because there's something about seeing a notification come up on my phone that just kind of makes me go, oh, like I feel like I have to deal with that right then and there. Do you know what I mean? Or you know, an email will come through and it sort of gives you that sort of prompt about it, and it'll say gig on, blah, 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 and then you feel you have to go right now. You don't, right? Especially if it's something important. So to me, like, practice is really important. So I kind of go, right. And I come in the studio here, I have a sign that I put up on the door to let the fam know that, you know, like I could be recording or whatever. And I just want I think having a space you can work in is a big one. Turning your phone off and stuff like that. I think too that instead of trying, like, we try to tackle everything at once. There's this idea and this idea and this idea and this idea. And it becomes this thing that's like, man, it's overwhelming. Right? Does anyone else feel that? Because I definitely do. So I kind of got, instead of doing that, like I said, I've been focusing in on my technique lately and kind of working on. This is one thing I've been doing, going. You know what I mean? Like burst playing, because it's more how you'd play than rather long things, you know what I mean? And trying to work on getting whatever motion that is. You know what I mean? And trying to get that into my playing to just feel more natural. And it's always really hard in the morning. That's what I find. So that's the time to do it. So I did a little bit of that before I kind of came on here and jumped on this. But I'd say turn your phone on to silent, do not disturb, find a space to work where you can kind of do your thing, and just focus in on one thing for a little while, right? If that's going to be technique, then do that. If it's going to be like playing chord changes, do that. It could even be like learning a song and going, right, I'm going to get this blimmin' song down, you know what I mean? For me, one song I've been working on forever, and you know, it's always going to be a work in progress, probably, is Chromosome by Mike Stern, you know? You know what I mean? It's a real exercise in picking technique, that song, right? It's tricky, you know, and they're tricky kind of phrases. You know what I mean? So I work on that one quite a bit, and that's kind of been like a long-term project. And the thing is, if you work on it from one song, it kind of spills over in all the other songs. So that would be my advice. Narrow what you do. Don't try and do everything. Try and narrow it down to just doing one or two things, and work on, find a space where you can work by yourself and turn your phone and devices on silent or do not disturb and that kind of stuff. So you can just get on with doing something. I'd also say that regular work is better than like burst stuff. So where you, like, say you're going to do 6 hours on a Sunday night. What's better than doing nothing? But you're better to do 6 days of an hour a day than to do 6 hours in one go. You'll get far more out of it by being regular and systematic with your playing. For sure. Now, I realize that's not always reality for everyone, you know. People have different things in their lives. So it's sort of, you know... for me, though, what I find is I grab a little bit of time here and there when I can. Because sometimes you get caught up, you know, and sometimes, you know, if I have... Like at summertime, I might have had 5 or 6 gigs in a week. There's not a lot of time to do other stuff when that's kind of the thing. But I kind of integrate like learning the stuff with the gigs and all that into my practice as well. So, you know, like this orchestra stuff that I've got this week, that's going to be my practice between now and then. Is kind of, I already found a little bit in a couple of things I have to look at. So I'm going to work on those. And of course, that work from that spills over to everything else. So hey man, I hope that helps. Hey look folks, I'm going to have to go. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you all being here. You guys are awesome. I'm just writing in the chat. Yeah, I appreciate you all being here, and hopefully you've got something from this. I always leave these videos up, so please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. I leave these videos up so that you can, hopefully they're useful to someone. The only time I take them down if there's a technical problem. I took one down a couple of weeks ago, well, last week, whenever it was, because there was some real major issues with the backing track to the guitar. It was like they were just out of sync, something whack going on. So I've actually changed my whole system now, and this is working so much better. I'm kind of essentially running a mixer to run the live streams, whereas I was trying to route it from my computer back into OBS, whatever. Alexander Kennedy says, thanks, Nick. Amazing to hear about jamming with Mike pre the gigs. Have a good one. Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I could talk about more of that stuff in future if you want, I've been very lucky to kind of tour with some monster musicians, not often guitar players. Mike Stern was kind of a rarity because usually I'm the guitar player, right? So, and the chance of getting to tour with another guitar player doesn't happen that much. Although I did tour with Schofield, John Schofield, but that one was more like I was looking after him. I didn't play on those gigs, although we did play in the hotel room and stuff like that a little bit. But yeah, but I could talk about that. But maybe some of the, if you're interested, I could talk about some of the stuff like with touring with drummers in particular, and things I've learned out of that, like Dave Weckl and Steve Smith I toured with, and who else was there? I played a few gigs with Terry on Gully, who's one of the scariest drummers. Tank is ridiculous. That guy, man, I had to tap my foot the whole time. I still didn't know where beat one was half the time. And I played with John Riley. He was someone I learnt a lot about music from playing with. Steve Houghton, some really great drummers. Not so much bass players. I mean, bass players weren't something that really would come out to here to tour, mostly because bass is more a supporting instrument. But I could talk about playing with Joey Defrancesco and certain things I learned from that. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.